You're listening to the Endless Party Radio Show with the Doc on Colossal Radio.
Definitely not his first rodeo. Ladies and gentlemen, certainly multi-instrumentalist, one hell of a drummer, and I think we might even have a mutual friend or two on board here with us right now is Joe Vitale, an extraordinary musician and somebody who has, we can classify as rock and roll elite. And Joe Vitale, welcome to Colossal Radio.
Glad to speak with you, man. It's great to be here.
Where does Joe Vitale call home? Where are we calling? Where are you, Joe?
I reside in the state that I was born in, and that is Ohio. So we're kind of neighbors.
Yeah, you're not that far, man. Not that far at all. First of all, it's really, great to have you on board with the show. Some of the people that you played for and played with, I've had on my show. One of them I'll bring right out of the gate, and that is Ted Nugent. I know you played with the Amboy Dukes back in the day too, and Ted and I had some great phone interviews and in studio interviews over the years, and just one of the many that you've played with, Joe.
Yeah, that was way back. Geez, that was Amboy Dukes 70, 71, around there.
Yeah. Long time ago. But you know what? You're doing it, man. I mean, here you are. You can say a legend. Some people will come to me and say after 35 years, it's like, you're a legend. You know what that means? That means I'm old.
I love that.
It means I'm old. That's all that it means. I'm old. But, let's do a little background history on Joe Vitale, because, I mean, when I say rock and roll elite, for real, you have played with so many people. I mean, started out, humble beginnings in Ohio and traveled the world, and now back in Ohio. Geez, I mean, I know enough history about you that I could carry on this conversation forever, but let's start a little bit with like Kent State, when you ran into some people like by the names of Joe Walsh that was also at Kent State back in the day, right?
Yeah, we both went to Kent State. I don't say that we went to school there, but we were enrolled there, and we'd get to class once in a while. But no, I was playing in a local band, and his local band at the time of all bands was the James Gang, but they were just a local band. They were an amazingly good band, power trio, and I was in a more of a funk rock band, and we played at the club next door to where the James Gang played. Going way back, actually 1968, last year made 50 years friendship with Joe Walsh.
Wow.
50 years. So
that's great.
Anyway, so we ran around town, played all the clubs and all the dives, and some good, some bad, and apparently the James Gang had run its course in Joe's mind, and I was with Ted Nugent, and we ran into each other on the road because Ted Nugent opened for the James Gang in Florida, and this was way back, 71. And Joe spoke to me after the show, and he said he's leaving the gang. Let's do something. Wow. And that started a whole lifetime relationship of. I mean, I knew Joe, and we had jammed and all that, but we were never in a band together yet. And so it started a whole lifetime of career for us,
The stories, I can only imagine the stories with some of the people, Joe Walsh and the guys with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Eagles, the stories. I mean, there had to be some epic times with all these guys. I mean, there had to be
epic. And if I may promo it, it's all in my book.
I know. No, please do, because I know you have a book out, and I want to touch base, obviously, on that. You guys are going to have to make sure you check things out. You can get the information with Joe Vitale on Facebook. Look for him, professional drummer. Joe Vitale, drummer. You'll find it on Facebook. You'll also find Joe Vitale on drums.com as well.
Yes, that's
with a website.
Right. Yep, that's where to find the book and CDs and junk. Anyway, yeah, one thing led to another. You know, I got a show with Joe Walsh in 3 weeks from now, and we're still playing. And
That's great.
The Crosby, Stills, and Nash was about that run for me with them was about 35 years. And again, you know, that's, you know, they didn't always tour, but on and off for 35 years, and in between that, there were other bands I worked with and stuff. So I was busy. I am still busy.
Yeah, you are. I mean, even and I like to enter these interviews. And let's face it, you've done hundreds, thousands of interviews like this. I mean, I have a few questions, but I like running it, man, where we're just hanging out and
hanging out and rapping.
That's it, man. So I'm all over the board here, but you know, you're still busy. And for those of you that don't know, Joe Vitale played with anybody that you can think of in rock and roll history, damn near. Your music and the songs you have written and co-produced and yada 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 have been featured in music and film. Joe Dirt, the 40-year-old version, and many more.
Yep. Yeah, we got lucky with a couple of good ones, and they're still around, and some of them have turned into classic rock songs, and man, you can't. That's humbling, man. You can't beat that.
How about it? I mean, even all the way down to Devil's Rejects and the Beverly Hillbillies. How did that?
Yeah, I know. You know you've made it if you got a song on the Beverly Hillbillies.
That is hilarious. That is like funny, but it's the truth. Look, these guys are so well connected with so many people. It is just like I said. It's their family. It's what these guys do. And as you heard Joe Vitale just say, a 50-year career with. A legend himself, Joe Walsh. I mean, man, when I think of guitar players, you know, Joe Walsh, Eric Clapton, Mark Knopfler. I mean, these guys are phenomenal. Yep. They're
top 10 in the world for sure.
Oh my gosh! I mean, totally. A couple of things. Let's first of all, even going back to Kent State with Joe Walsh, like you said, they didn't know. I don't know. There was probably a lot of partying going on there. You were actually there when the shootings occurred.
Yeah, we were May 4th, 1970. We were both there, and it was ugly. We were under martial law. We had never seen anything like that in that town. It was a bunch of pot-smoking hippies at the time.
Right.
And there was no violence or, you know, of course there were peaceful demonstrations, but,
sure.
You know, it wasn't really the Kent people that caused a lot of that trouble, and that's documented. It was these SDS people who came down from Detroit and just wound the whole place up, and then they started doing destruction and all that. That's when they called in the National Guard and all that, and all hell broke loose, and the tragedy of it all was that, you know, 4 students got killed.
Right.
And I don't think anybody ever realized it would escalate to that point, but it did. It was ugly, and that town was never the same after that. And I think by now, a lot of, you know, a couple of generations have gone by. It's in the history books. They got a beautiful memorial on campus there for it. And but no, we were there right in the heart of it, and we woke up on the first night that was going on. We woke up the next day and was like, what the heck's going on? Because we had no idea what happened, but we saw smoke in the distance, and they had burned the ROTC building. That's what really escalated the whole thing and went crazy. And it was sad. It was scary because we were kids.
Sure.
It was scary and it was sad and then devastating, you know, to lose 4 students like that. But man, what a thing to go through. And I hope that people, you know, at least learn the history of it, and that it's not forgotten and seriously never to happen again, you know. But yeah, it was ugly.
Yeah, and that's I wanted to give those of you that are on board with this station and the show right now a little background there with Joe Vitale on board here with us, who has played with and is part of the rock and roll elite on board here with us, thanks to Dave Miller, Dave the bookie, who works out these deals with guys like this on this show and on this station. So a timeline there back in history when it was certainly an interesting time. I have to, bring up Colorado Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for you, right?
Yeah, we did that a couple of years ago. Man, that was fun.
Was it?
Yeah, and we got together the original 3 Barnstorm, and we played, and I think we sounded better than ever, and we sold out 18,000 seats, and Joe looked at it. I think he kind of looked at it and went, I don't know, maybe a reunion, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
you never know about that stuff. He's pretty busy with all kinds of stuff, but you never know.
I love it, and let's talk about that Barnstorm. Who you were there, Joe Walsh, right?
Yes, and the bass player was Kenny Passarelli. That's the original 3 that was called Barnstorm, and we were there with Garth Brooks, and it was a tribute to Danny Fogelberg, who was from Colorado, and he was inducted in the release of his CD, and there's all kinds of Colorado stuff. Richie Furia was there, and so Colorado back in the 70s, Denver and Boulder area, there was a ton of music going on. Music kind of migrates city to city throughout the decades. One decade it was during the disco stuff, it was all Miami. That was the place to hang, and that's where all the musicians were, and all the recordings with disco, because the Bee Gees made it famous and down there in Miami. And then, later in the 70s, all of a sudden, Manassas with Stephen Stills and part of the Beach Boys and Joe Walsh and Danny Fogelberg and Firefall, and all these people were moving to Colorado. So that was the new place. It's kind of it comes and goes. Now, of course, it's Nashville. So everybody's moving to Nashville.
Yeah. You're right. No, you're absolutely right.
I mean, it was always Music City, but now it's like music country, man. It's like this huge thing now down there, and God bless them. Good for them, But music tends to migrate. I think. I don't know. I don't know why, but I think people are in a certain area. There's a lot of music going on, and it lasts for however long it lasts. And then things change, and where people move out, and they discover a new place where everybody's hanging out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just stay in Ohio and watch it all go down.
But at one time, though, you were migrating, with them, Joe. You were migrating with them.
I did. and it made for a career,
Sure.
But I mean, then after a while, you establish yourself, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to move anymore.
I hear you. I'll tell you, I don't know. My mind's like crazy with Joe Vitale on board here with us, who has played with just so many. Speaking of Colorado, too, Caribou Recording Studio. So much was done there, right? I mean, Elton John there, and
John Lennon.
The John Lennon, Chicago.
Yeah, everybody was there, and one thing a lot of people don't know, because that place is famous. I mean, everybody was recorded there. Everybody, because it was beautiful in the middle of nowhere, 8,000 feet up in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere. It was just an ideal, perfect place to record. But anyway, a lot of people don't realize that us, Barnstorm, with Joe, we made the very first record there. Yeah, and they weren't even done with the studio yet. Downstairs there were studs and drywall going up, and upstairs the studio was finished. So, but we made the very first record ever to come out of Caribou. It was the Barnstorm album, and then from there it just went crazy, and it had its run, a big run. I mean, Elton, John Lennon, the Chicago, Beach Boys, Danny Fogelberg, everybody recorded up there.
Yeah, it was big. For those of you that don't know, you can still do some search on online and find a lot of information on which I just know from doing what I'm doing for a long time, with the help of Keith, who is a great friend of mine, who is like a rock and roll encyclopedia. Another guy that filters in and out of this studio and this station. And we were talking about Caribou Recording Studio here earlier this morning, and you can search it out. This Caribou Recording Studio was huge, man. This is where the creme de la creme, man, went and did their thing, man. So I'm sure there were parties. I mean, there had to be parties there on the Caribou Ranch.
Well, it was you had to if you wanted to party, you partied there because there was nothing else around. you were the party, and it was kind of cool. He Jim Gershio built it, and he had all these little bungalows, cabins on the property, and when you recorded there, you stayed there because, like I said, there's nowhere to go. You're in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
They had a beautiful on-site cafeteria. They had these cabins. They had, there was kind of stuff to do. They had horses. They had, in the winter they had snowmobiles.
That's great.
You were the party. There was nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And half the time when you were up there if you were in there in the winter, you could get snowed in. It didn't matter. We still worked and recorded, but there was nowhere else to go. So we had a great time up there because it was a good bonding thing for bands and stuff to hang, and we wrote a lot of songs while we were there.
Yeah.
So it was cool.
Yeah, like I said, you can, for those of you, we're on board with Joe Vitale, rock and roll elite, and a hell of a master drummer, and instrumentalist, other than just drums, and great to have him on board with the show. So many people that he's played with, but you find information online. Read about the Caribou recording studio. It's pretty cool the way how that whole place was laid out. Something else, and we'll get to the book coming up here as well. I mean, I want to get to this book and let you hit on this book, but somebody else going through the history, things that you have going on. As well, we have a guy that, and I know you're part of this, the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. It was a couple of weeks ago. I had David Fishov on board with a show. You're still part of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, Joe?
Yes, I just came home last week from one out in Vegas with Joe Perry and Lou Graham and Vince Neil.
Yeah, nice. We had a great interview with David Fishov, Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. For those of you want to go back, listen, we have, and this goes for you too, Joe. For those of you that are out there, we have some absolutely incredible interviews that we've already done, thanks to Dave the Bookie, on the Colossal Radio YouTube channel. So you can find, you'll find Joe Vitale's interview after we're done, uploaded on the Colossal Radio YouTube channel. Also, the one with David Fishov, Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, that Joe Vitale is also part of, which is pretty cool. I have to bring up another master drummer and a mutual friend. I'm sure when I mention this name, he is great friends of our family still. I have his personal phone number. We're going to be doing something really cool with him on the show as well. And maybe you don't know them or know him, but I would be, if I was a betting man, I'd throw it all on Joe Vitale by saying yes. Another master drummer by the name of Denny Sywell.
Of course I know Denny, and you were just talking about Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. We did a Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp together, a modern drummer camp, and he was one of the drummer counselors there. Wonderful cat. He's a killer drummer and a great man, and glad to have met him. And I knew of him all his career in life, but I never met him.
Oh.
And we got a chance to meet and hang for a week in Vegas when we did the camp, and it was really a nice experience to hang with him and watch him play and learn from him. And he's an excellent musician.
Yeah, he like I said, the Sywell family, great people, right here out of Lehighton, Pennsylvania. Actually, I was born right across the street from where they all lived, and
I didn't know that.
Absolutely,
cool.
Yeah, and he went on to certainly Paul McCartney and Wings, a studio musician.
Not a bad gig.
Not a bad gig at all, man. Not a bad gig at all. You've done, as Denny has too, you've done a lot of session work for some great people. How's that? I mean, when you're in there, you're doing your session work. I know Denny would say, and I'm not bringing Denny into the interview, but I just, going by what he has said too, and with other people, it's so much different now anymore because you get the track sent to you, you hear it, you're doing it maybe in your own studio. It's not like it used to be. You didn't have that. You don't have that personal where everybody, like you said, with the Caribou recording studio, where people are there now anymore. With technology, good or bad, however you want to look at it, it's kind of like separates things a little bit, Joe.
It does. I don't like it. I mean, it works, but you can come up with great stuff and all that, but there's nothing like 4 or 5 guys in a studio with a good engineer and producer behind the window, and you just record like old days, old-fashioned ways, and there's nothing like it. And there's people that still do it though, and once in a while I'll get a session where I'm surprised because they go, "Now, do you need a kit in this city, or are you going to bring one?" And I said, you mean we're doing this like a band? And they go, yeah. It's like, all right. But, it's the way things, evolve. And I guess it's okay. Like I say, if you ask any of the old-timers, old school guys like me, we all would rather, we would all rather do it the old school way, But there's a lot of, we call them virtual sessions, where they send you files, and most guys have a studio, and, you load them up and you do your overdubs and all that, but you're missing that beautiful, personal contact with you and the engineer, you and the producer, you and the other band guys, So, like I say, you can get the job done, you can get it done, and it sounds really good. But you lack that fun, that bonding.
Yeah, totally agree. Joe Vitale of rock and roll lead, playing with everybody, and a multi-instrumentalist. Find information at Joe Vitale on drums.com. You'll find Joe Vitale Drummer on Facebook. Give it a like. Give him a comment from you guys as the Colossal Posse. So awesome to have this guy, and great job by Dave to land Joe on the show. What a memory, I'm sure I always ask this, and some people are able to answer it, some aren't. Some will recall a story going, I do remember this story. What one story that a lot of us could relate to with somebody who you played with, played for on the road? I mean, has there been I always like to hear like maybe about a crazy story. I mean, I know, with other interviews, with David Crosby, they brought him into the mix. I know David Fishoff, I think, brought David Crosby into the mix, and, with something that has been written in his book, but, right. Like he was a crazy party guy.
I would think so, yeah.
Almost lit himself on fire, by doing crack and all kinds of things on the bus, which is a true story. But I mean, what story maybe does, and we love David Crosby, man, gotta love him. What story sticks out maybe? And I know there's probably thousands. Any story sticks out in Joe Vitale's mind?
Well, there's thousands. I can just, grab. It'd be like if you had stories, titles on a little piece of paper, and you reach in the bag and grab one. Well, there's hundreds and thousands of them. But one of the funniest things that ever happened on the road was, of course, with Joe Walsh. And, Joe always got adjoining rooms with his manager in the hotel. Mm-hmm. And we played in some weird little town one time, and the best hotel in town was a Holiday Inn, and which is fine. Back in the day, we were happy to, anything is fine. Uh-huh. But so we had and the manager asked for adjoining rooms with Joe, and the guy said, well, this hotel doesn't have adjoining rooms. And so Joe said, wait a minute, what do you mean you don't have adjoining rooms? So Joe used to have a chainsaw in the truck.
What?
God only knows why, but he had a chainsaw in the truck. So Joe decided, he said, well, can we at least have rooms next to each other? And the guy goes, well, sure, I can put you next to each other. And Joe said, that would just be fine. And so he cut a hole in the wall with his chainsaw.
No way.
Yeah, and about $8,000 damage, and he cut a hole in the wall, but it was a beautiful done. It was done. It was 7 feet by 3 feet. It looked like a doorway. I mean, it was really well done, and and he's cutting, and he's not thinking there might be pipes and electric lines, and it didn't matter. Oh. And he cut, and then he said there. And he put the what was left of, he put the piece from the wall out in the hallway, and he said, there, now I got adjoining rooms, and they just, and then when the cops showed up, he just, manager and him, they paid for it, and $8,000, so.
No
but
way.
Here I am, I'm going, what the heck is going on?
That is hilarious.
And it's like, I'd never even conceive of doing such a thing. And, But yeah, there was a lot of fun on the road with him.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's an epic story. That's funny. Now, why would he want that though? Why would he have to have that adjoining room or be able to get access to his manager for what?
Well, because they did a lot of planning and business together and all that, and he didn't want to do it on the phone. And they used to walk through the doorway, and they would be in each other's one of the rooms, and they would sit down and map out the tour or talk about this and that, whatever, just do business, right?
Gotcha.
And it was just easier, and yeah.
That's funny. That is really funny.
So,
that's a good story. That's a
good one.
story. Yeah.
I had those are the kind of stories in the book, and my book is a no dirt book. It's a just fun and crazy stuff and stuff like that, and there's tons of stuff people are so interested in as far as the scenes in the background, that people never hear about, and there's just a lot that goes on the road that people don't know about.
Exactly, man. I can only imagine. I mean, I've been associated with part of it at a small part of it in my career, and
First, you know what I'm talking about.
I do, man. I do, and I'll just in case my mother, who's still 90, I mean, if she's still listening, she already knows. She's going, you know what? You've been a mess. I've been a mess since birth, but somehow I've been able to make a living out of having a party. But it was a great lead-in with the book. The book, Joe Vitale Backstage Pass. Tell us a little bit about it, and for those of you that are on board with this show, we will make a link to this as well. A book that I need to get. You know what? I should almost get Dave the Bookie to get in touch with your publicist so I can get a signed copy, though, Joe. That I really would like.
You just write to me on my email, and I'll take care of that.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about this Joe Vitale Backstage Pass. You did a little bit. What do we got on it?
Well, here's how. When you're on tour and you jump on the bus and you got new guys or whatever, and you're hanging out at the bus while you're getting ready to go to sleep and stuff. People always have road stories. There's always road stories. Everybody, and everybody's always interested in hearing, what. Because we all play with different people, and so it's not like the stuff. We don't talk dirt and all that crap. We talk the funny, crazy stuff. And so I was doing it for we were doing it a lot, and several people go, man, these stories are hilarious. You should write a book. I went, I don't write books, man. I'm a drummer. and then I was, my wife finally said, you know what? I'm going to write the book. You tell me about the stories. I'm going to write the book. And she did an amazing job. And, just like stuff that you don't think you'd ever do. I guess it's because, you need help. You need help to get started. And where do you start when you want to write a book? Our book's got 750 photos in it.
Wow.
And so that we went through literally 10,000 photos because I've taken photos for 50 years on the road. And so every time I tell a story, there's a photo that goes with it. And that really, really makes it nice for the reader. And we've never gotten a single bad review. We've only gotten 5-star reviews on it. And it is absolutely hilarious. And it's about my career, of course, but it's not really about me. It's about all the people I play with. And the list is pretty lengthy. So it's about you. If you're a Stephen Stills fan, I got stories. And like I said, they're not the kind of stories they're not the dirt, they're the hilarious, silly stuff.
Right.
And,
I love it.
So, yeah, you shoot me an email. I got you covered. But as far as getting my book, the absolute best place to get my book, and it will be a signed copy, is on my website, which you have said it's joevitaleondrums.com.
Yeah, you'll see.
And that's the best place to get the book.
Yeah, you'll see it right there. You'll see it. It'll say store on it, and it's right there. And it is a definite read, man. I just didn't get enough time, even when booking this cruise. I just got back from the Caribbean, playing on a cruise ship myself, and I just got back. So it was so quick, man. The last couple of weeks, we just sold our house and moved into a new house, and yada yada yada. But I didn't get a chance to get on board, which I did my research on having Joe Vitale on board here with us, but it just didn't get the time to order this book.
You'll enjoy it.
Oh my gosh, I can't
Give
wait.
me an email where I can get it to you, and you got it.
You listen. For the rest of you, do it. Joe Vitale. That's Vitale on drums.
Yep.
Joe Vitale on drums.com, and go there to the store. It is. I know Keith is on board with me right now. I just have a bunch of people that are sending me email. It's like, I'm on it with this book. Buy this book, man. Buy the book. Joe Vitale Backstage Pass. Something else, and I could go on and on with you forever. I thank you for your time, just being very, very laid back, kind of like just jamming and hanging out here, just talking. And your son is off to a great start. Now, I listened to a little bit of what he's doing the last couple of days. Joe Vitale Jr., he's out there with albums and singles, and he's knocking it out, man.
Yeah, he's doing terrific, and he learned a lot, growing up in the family here, being on the road and all that, and then he took all that knowledge and he made it his own. He does, his own style of music is a killer, and but he's got a lot of old school classic rock influence on what he's doing, and I couldn't ask for a better situation for him, because he learned the way we used to do it, and everything's different now, and things are modernized on that, and I love it, and so he's taken all that old school knowledge and applied it to what he's doing, and so, yeah, he's doing good.
Yeah, you can find out more off Joe's website, but Joe Vitale Jr. is joevitalejr.com, and see what's going on there. And you mentioned your wife too. I mean, she, she's put up with the rock and roll lifestyle for a long time.
Yeah, we met in Kent. Been married 47 years.
Wow, man, that is cool. That is totally cool. I don't know. Now I have another email that came in from two guys. Keith, the other guy that came in here is Dave. Whoever these guys are, I only get the first names. Read the book. The book is phenomenal. The book from this guy, fantastic. Get Joe Vitale's book. You won't be disappointed. A whole bunch of reviews right here already just with this interview. So for those of you
I
that...
appreciate that, man. I really appreciate that.
I'll tell you, just so way cool. I could go on, and like I said, I hit on some key points, but I just like doing a real kind of interview. You guys have done so many of them where the questions are scripted and everything else. I don't go down that road, man.
I really enjoyed this interview. You really it's so easy to talk with and so informative, and you still get the job done, but it's a lot of fun to talk with you. It's really good.
Coming from you, I'll most definitely take that as a compliment. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to give Denny a call. I have his personal cell as well. I'll give Denny a call and let him know that we plugged in.
Send him a big hug and love, man. He's a good dude.
Yeah, he is a good dude, and likewise, so are you. I'm sure he'll say the same thing about you as well. Again, on and on. I could go on with this interview, and Joe Vitale on drums.com. Find him on Facebook as well. And listen, don't if you can give me a second. Joe, don't hang up. We'll play something here that I don't know. Let me do a song that people play. Life's Been Good. They played so much. That song. I love one called Turn to Stone by Joe Walsh.
Oh yeah.
So let's do that one. If you can hang on for me a second, we can say our goodbyes off the air. Joe Vitale. Instrumentalist that played with anybody that almost you can think of in the rock and roll world, man. So, Joe, thanks a million.
You're welcome.
All right, hang on a second. Let's do this one. All right, let's do this one. Joe Walsh, man, and a personal friend of his in a relationship for 50 years, man.
Lehighton, Palmerton, Gem Thorpe, and nationwide, it's Colossal Radio. Find us online at colossalradio.rocks.